Feral revolution, feral fawn, radical theory, a wrecking ball for ivory towers. It seems to have become a given among many anti-authoritarians that radical theory is an academic pursuit. On the one hand, there are the ideological activists who accuse anyone who attempts to criticize, analyze society, or their own activities in any way that goes beyond the latest hip anarchist sloganeering or being armchair intellectuals or academics. On the other hand, there are those who supplement the income of their academic intellectual professions by writing tracts criticizing society, the left, or even their own professions, but it is such abstract and insubstantial terms as to be meaningless in relation to their own lives. These intellectual, quote, radicals and anti-intellectual activists remain equally enslaved to society's discourse. Radical theory is elsewhere. Radical theory springs from the energy of insurgent desire, first as a basic recognition that the social context in which we find ourselves impoverishes our lives. Because we have been educated not to think, but rather to have thoughts, it is very easy to fall from this basic recognition in accepting one or another, quote, radical ideology, mouthing the appropriate slogans, and participating in mindless activism, better called reactivism, which jumps and dances for every cause and issue, but never attacks society at its roots. I've heard, quote, class war anarchists, many of them from upper middle class backgrounds, justify such stupidity by declaring any attempts at more precise and critical thinking to be an expression of classist privilege, even when those making the attempts are high school dropout lumpen. But there is nothing radical about stupidity, or, quote, thinking, in slogans even when they're anarchist slogans. Radical theory is the attempt to understand the complex system of relationships which is society, how it reproduces itself, and the individual as a part of itself, and how one can begin to undermine its control and take back one's life in order to become a self-creative individual. It has no place in either the ivory tower or the academy, or that of the mindless ideology, reactivism. It is rather an integral part of an active insurgence against society. Having recognized that society impoverishes our lives, it is a very small step to realize that the simplistic sloganeering that is frequently passed off as radical thought is part of this impoverishment. It belittles us as individuals by substituting itself for thinking and imagination. Quote, smash authority is a wonderful statement, but that's all it is. It tells us nothing about the nature of authority or relationship to it, its trajectories and tendencies, or how we can go about destroying it. This is why those whom this slogan is an adequate analysis of authority continues to repeat the same futility and insipid actions over and over again as a sign of their resistance to authority. Actions which have long since proven only to reinforce authority by creating easily confined rituals of pseudo-opposition, which keep rebellion domesticated. The small step which opens the possibilities of thinking beyond slogans is an about-face, a reversal of perspective. If society impoverishes our lives, if it offers nothing worth having, then there is no reason for any of us to let this absurd system of relationships into which we have been integrated continue to determine how we view the world, either by accepting of its perspective or by reacting to it. Instead, our attempts to create our lives as fully and intensely as possible, which will bring us into conflict with society, can be the basis for an ongoing analysis of society and a relationship to it that challenges and enhances our thinking and imaginations and stimulates an active insurgence against authority as it exists in their interactions that create our daily lives. This analysis cannot be a static set of ideas and principles, because it is an integral part of a dialectic of thinking and living as an insurgent, self-creating individual. As such, it is an integral part of action. not to separate specialization. Written expression of this analysis, which should be not mistaken for the analysis of itself, requires the development of a language that is very precise and very fluid, very pointy and very playful. I am very far from attaining this, but am trying to develop it. The language of the situationists, particularly de Borde and Vaneigem, in his SI days, was aiming for this. But those who prefer slogans to intensive analysis frequently accuse those attempting to develop such language as, quote, intellectualism. Yet only by developing such a language can the expression of theory be wrested from the intellectual specialist and made into an integral part of an active insurgence. Radical theory is an aspect of a way of living which smashes all ivory towers. It exposes the theories that spill from the academic ivory towers as lifeless shams. It exposes the actions of the ideologues of activism as mindless reaction. To put it another way, theorists who aren't living insurgent life say nothing that's worth saying, and activists who refuse to think critically do nothing worth doing. Radical theory is thinking, becoming centrally integrated into an insurgent life and learning, however slowly, to express itself with precision and fluidity. When developed, it cuts like a well-honed knife.